Okay, let's work on Lab 8 together. Before watching this video, make sure you have already tried those problems by yourself. The first question, download the following dataset. So this is the file extension is SAS 7BDAT. So this is a SAS dataset. After you download this dataset, upload the file to your online cloud storage. I think so. I download the data here, employee. To use this data, I just create a library. So SAS Lab, lab name, I call it my lab. Specify the location of these lab data sets. For print data equals my lab employees. Run. So this is the data. Okay. Define proper SAS macro variables such that the following code will display the variable head date in the format of mmddyy10. See, copy this piece of code. Well, so we want this part will display head date in the format of this one. So first you need to know, so without a macro variable, so how can you do it, right? So then we will know, we will do it in this way. For print data is my lab employee, okay, and so then we will display variable head date, right? And so we want to select the format of head date as mmddyy10, right? So this is what we want to, what we need to do if we do not use macro. So this exercise basically just asks you, just make sure so you understand how macro variable works. You can see in the place of my lab, so here we have a macro trigger, right? So my lab name. So then you just need to define this my lab name to be my lab, and see in here my data name, right? So this one, this one should be replaced by employee, right? So then I will say my employee, or not employee, my data name, right? So is employees. Okay. See, this one should be replaced by head date, right? So this one. So then I will say let my van name should be this head date. This one, my date format. My date format. Let. So we need to define this macro variable as, see, this is the corresponding tags here, right? So basically for macro variable, when SAS run it, so those macro variable just will be replaced by its values, right? So after you define the macro variable in this way, so when SAS runs this piece of code with macro variables, SAS after this replacement, so essentially SAS will get this piece of code, right? So what SAS essentially run is this piece of code. So let's run this part. Oh, something wrong. Invalid data set name. See, it says, I guess I may miss my data name. So my data name. Okay, so let's run it again. So now it works, right? So now it works. Okay. Second question, so why are these two why there are 2 periods. So in here, see, we have 2 dots, right? So what will happen if we use only 1 period? See, if you only use 1 period, if you run it, SAS show you error. See, work my lab employees data does not exist. And what does this mean? See, we can use a put basically to check the value. Yeah, so 1, maybe we start from a no dot. So no dot is no dot, right? 1 dot and the 2 dots. Yes, 2 dots. So we run this one. You can check the log window. You can see if no dots. See, cause here you have 2 macro variables, right? See, first macro variable is my lab. Second variable is employee. Yeah, so SAS just directly concatenate these 2 values together, so becomes 1 word. Yeah, and so that becomes 1 word. If you use 1 dot, similar, so we'll get the same result. The reason is, so usually, see, for this one, this is when SAS read this dot, so SAS will know. This basically, so this dot just indicate the end of the name of the macro variable. Yeah, so this dot just indicate the end of the name of that macro variable, right? So then SAS knows, so okay, so this is one macro variable, this is another macro variable. Okay, without with or without this dot, so SAS produce the same result. Yeah, so if you want a dot, yeah, because see, this dot just indicate the library, the SAS library and the SAS dataset, right? So if you want a dot, so then you need to add extra dot. Yeah, because see the first dot here, so SAS think this dot is used to indicate the end of the name of the macro variable, right? So then for the next, for the second dot, so SAS just will add that dot here, right? Yeah, so this is why here, so we need 2 dot. Yeah, so if you only write 1 dot, SAS will indicate error. Yeah, so SAS will see, yeah, so if you have only 1 dot, so this is why the error message is like this one. See, my lab employees data does not exist. Yeah, because so SAS think you want this data. Yeah, so but if you use 2 dot, it works fine, right? 3. So change the value of macro variable such that the above SAS code will display variable salary in this format. So the same one, right? Yeah, but see, if you change the variable name to salary, and if you change this to a different format, dollar, okay, $12.2, right? So then you run this again. You can see, so this is the salary displayed in this format, right? Yeah, because you changed the value of the macro variable, right? And so then when SAS do this replacement, yeah, so then SAS will run the code and so we'll produce the output as the question request. The last one, can you complete the following code to make it display the hiring date of employees? So I know, so this code looks weird, right? Yeah, but this is just, make sure so you understand those, how those macro function works. See, so first I just define a macro variable. Yeah, so this is called my string. Then my this is substring macro variable and scan macro variable. See, if we want to display the hire date, right? See, this piece of code, so this is the piece of code, so we need to use. If we compare this one with here, so seems this substring, right? So in this position, so we need to get proc print. Also seems the first several characters, so they are proc print, right? See, we want to substring. Basically, we want to get the substring of this value. Start from position 1. So I think the length will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so start from this my string. Yeah, so notice you need this M sign to indicate a macro trigger. Yeah, so start from position 1. So the length will be 10. Okay. Var scan. So here we want to display a hire date, right? Scan just extract the word. So we have the first word 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so the fifth word. My string, and so the fifth word. Okay. So then you run this one. See, this is print the hire date, right? Yeah, so it works. Yeah, so this just want to make sure so you understand those macro functions, so how it works. Yeah, you can see those macro variable and the macro function is very flexible, right? Okay. Question 2. Download the following data set. So let's download the data set. Yeah, so this is grades. We use this data multiple times. File name, file 1, URL. Yeah, so this is the grades. So proc import out is grades data file. So it's this file 1 and dbms. So this CSV, and we replace print data is grades. So let's run this one. Okay, data are loaded correctly. Define a new variable called outlier. So whose value is high if exam 1 is larger than this value. So low if exam 1 is lower than this value. Or no otherwise. So note that Q1, Q3 interquartile range. So IQR is interquartile range, right? Yeah, so they are first quartile, third quartile, interquartile range, which can be calculated using proc means. Okay. So first, let's try to compute first quartile, third quartile, and the interquartile range. Yeah, so we can do this calculation using proc means, right? So proc means data is grades. The variable will be exam 1. We want to output those values. Output will be grades stat Q1. I call it Q1. Q range, so that's interquartile range, IQR, and so Q3, so will be Q3. Yeah, so then we print this grades stat underscore stat and run. Yeah, you can see, so we get those values, right? So first quartile, third quartile, and the interquartile range. So then we need to see when we want to define those values, right? So what we want to do is see data grades, maybe I call it updated. Updated, right? Set grades. I think so. We first needed to compute this cut point. Yeah, needed to compute this cut point and this cut point, right? The cut 1. So suppose so that will be the Q1 minus 1.5 times interquartile quartile range, right? So cut 2, so will be Q2, right? So that is not Q2, Q3 plus 1.5 times interquartile range. See, if exam 1 is greater than cut 1, cut 2, right? So then outlier so will be high, right? Else, so if exam 1 is smaller than cut 1, so then outlier, so this will be value will be low. And so then else, yeah, so the outlier so will equals no, right? So this is how to define the outlier. Yeah, but we need the interquartile range. I mean Q1, Q3, and IQR here. Of course, the value is here. I mean, it's calculated, right? Yeah, but as I said, in SAS code, so you cannot copy. I mean, copy those number here. So how to pass information from this one to here? Yeah, so one way is we create macro variables. Okay, so then let's create macro variables in this way. So the data none, because I do not want to create extra data, so I just want to create macro variables. I will say set grade stat, open that one. So we use call simputx function. Yeah, so then first will be the name of that macro variable. So I call it grade Q1. So the value will be Q1, right? So then similarly, we will create other variables, grade IQR. So the value will be IQR. And so then call simputx, right? So then the grade Q3, the value will be Q3. Yeah, so after that, so you can say put, we just want to check so whether those values are set correctly or not, right? So I will say Q1 equals this grade Q1, IQR equals this end grade IQR, and Q3 equals this grade Q3. Yeah, so let me run this one. In the log window, you can see, yeah, so 70, 76, 11, and 87. Yeah, so seems the macro variable are set correctly. So in this code, so Q1 should be replaced by that macro variable. So I will say grade Q1. So this will be end grade IQR. So this will be end grade Q3. This will be end grade IQR. Yeah, so then I run this one. For print, data will be grades update. Okay, right, see, we have cut 1, cut 2, so those outliers, you can see no outlier, right? Yeah, so in order to check so whether this really works or not, we may change this to a smaller number, right? Yeah, so maybe if, for example, I change this to just to 2. Yeah, because I want to make sure, because value of the outlier so should be one of the 3, right? So because I want to make sure so I can really see those 3 different values. Yeah, I have high, I have low. Yeah, seems it works, right? So let me change this back to grade IQR. Grade IQR, right? Yeah, so this is this question. Okay. Question 3. download the following dataset. I think so the same dataset. The instructor so wants to scale the actual exam scores by dividing the original copy by maximum score. So note that you are not allowed to type the value for the maximum scores in your SAS code. Okay. We discussed this exercise before, yeah, but in that one, so we just use the data step. So here I just ask you to use a different method to do that. Compute the maximum score using proc means and then assign their values to macro variable using course input. I think so. This is a similar method so as what we are doing for the question 2. Let's do here. So first I just copy this part. So this is how to load the data. Then, okay, next. So we want to use proc means to compute the maximum, right? Yeah, so then I will say proc means data will be grades, right? And grades variable. So we have exam 1 and exam 2. So output, so out will be called grades max. The maximum of exam 1 and exam 2. So will be the EX1 max and the EX2 max. So we got the maximum of 2 of them. We will print this one to check. So this is what we want. Okay, so we have 2 maximum, right? Then we want to create the macro variable. Yeah, so very similar approach. So as the question 2, right? In the data none, right? Okay, we set grades, grades max. We call sim put x, right? The first macro variable we want to create is exam 1 max. And so then this will be exam 1 max. So will be value of that variable will be assigned to the macro variable x1 ex1 max. Similarly, put sim put x exam 2 max, right? So this will be exam 2 max. Okay, and run. Yeah, so usually, so I want to use a put statement. I just want to make sure the value are assigned correctly. ex1 max and ex2 max equals ex2 max. So we run it. Yeah, you can see. So this is 95. This is 100. The value are assigned correctly. So then we can define this, scale the grade, right? Data, we call it a grades max, set grades, okay? So the exam 1 max, right? So this will be, we don't need to assign value here, so we directly say exam 1 scaled, right? So will be exam 1 divided by this exam 1 max, right? So times 100. And so exam 2 scaled will be the exam 2 divided by use this macro variable. Oh, not exam 2, so ex1, ex2 max, right? So times 100. Yeah. We may want a format for this exam 1 scaled and exam 2 scaled. Both of them, the format will be 5.1. Okay. For print data is grades 1. Yeah, so let's run it. Seems works, right? check log window, nothing wrong. Yeah, you can see. So it should work. See, I think you can compare them. This one, see the maximum one. This is the maximum, right? So the value will be 100. Yeah, so the other will be scaled accordingly. For this one, because the maximum is 100, so the score before scale and after scale, so they should be the same value. Okay. Compute the maximum score using a proxycle and then assign their values to macro variable use into clause. So then use a proxycle without creating two macro variables. Okay. Oh, I think we will use this one to create macro variables. Yeah. So if we create macro variables in this way, let's see. So we will use a proxycle, right? Quit. So we will select max exam1, right, and the max exam2. So then we'll say into exam1 max, because let's use a different name, SQL SQL exam1 max, right, and column, so SQL exam2 max. Select this from grades. See this into clause, so just send the value of those maximum to these two macro variable. Yeah, so we can check the not proc, put so yeah, so exam1 max, so should be this one, and SQL exam1 max, exam2 max, yeah, so will be this SQL exam2 max. Let's run this one. What happened? Why there's no output? Let me run it again. Okay, so it comes out. Function exam could not be located. Max, oh, okay, misspelled. The max and the max, right? So let me run it again. See, these two values, so will be the maximum of exam1 and exam2, right? You can see here, see, so notice, see, there are some extra blanks, right? Yeah, so you may want to add trimmed and trimmed, so after this one, right? Because we may want to remove that extra blanks. Run it again. So now it looks better, right? Yeah, so for this one, the value will be 95. For the second one, the value is 100. After we have the value, so then we can create the data set in the same way. So I just copy this one. I call it grade max 2, okay? So the macro variable we use, so I just use SQL, just use the new macro variable we just defined. Let's run this one. Well, so seems produce the same result we want, right? Yeah, so check the log window, nothing wrong, okay? The question 3, use a SQL so without creating macro variables. We can do in this way, so proxycle, okay. We want to select every variable. Additionally, so we want to create scales, right? So we will just do exam1 times 100 divided by the maximum value as exam1 scaled, and the format is 5.1, right? So then for the next one, exam 2, so times 100 divided by the maximum of exam 2 as exam 2 scaled, and the format is 5.1. So select those from grades. Of course, if you want to assign that to a dataset, it's okay. So you can just create table. The name of the table will be grades max 3 as, so as this query, right? The print data will be grades max 3. Okay, so let's run this one. See, produces the same result. So check the log window, looks fine. So see, this is the resulting dataset. So you can check the code again and see we just use 3 different ways to achieve the same purpose. So the first one, we use programmings to calculate the maximum and assign the value to macro variable, right? And so then we just use data step to create to scale those variables. The second approach, so we just use a proc_SQL to create macro variable, right? And so then use a data step to scale the variable. In the last one, so using proc_SQL, so we just do it just within the proc_SQL. So since the last approach is the easiest one. Okay. I will stop here and I will, for the remaining questions, so I will record that in a different video.